I'm waiting the notification. Excellent. Okay. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this afternoon. We have a magnificent guest with us today, one who is going to give us some amazing information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than the iconic Dr. Abdul Alim Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, brother Joshua. How are you, sir?
I'm doing phenomenal. And on behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast, we thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come have a conversation with us. On October 16th, I had the honor of interviewing my father, getting his a recap on the historical Million Man March. And many people in the comments, as well as my father and family, was saying Dr. Alim played a pivotal role in the Million Man March. So could you go back 28 years and let us know what the climate was like leading up to the Million Man March? And, from your vantage point, why is it still important 28 years later, sir?
Yes, well, that is a very, very important question. And, the definitive story of the Million Man March has yet to be written. Mm. And that's because there were over 1 million of us there, and everybody had a point of view and saw what they saw, experienced what they experienced. And it's really hard for one person just to say, okay, I'm gonna gather all this together and that's gonna be it. That's the definitive story of the Million Man March. But like all good stories, you should begin at the beginning.
Yes, sir.
And if we want to say the minister was doing a tour in 1994, and he announced that he was going to call for 1 million men to come to Washington, D.C. He had been doing a series of men's only rallies, and he was gathering crowds as large as 35,000, say down in Houston, Texas. But tens of thousands of people, men, were coming out, to hear the minister.
Yes,
and
sir.
So that was the tremendous lead up, the drum roll, if you will, to the Million Man March. And then he announced that he was going to bring 1 million men to Washington. Mm-hmm. So I got a call right after that from Reverend James Bevel. Now, people who don't know Reverend Bevel, he was Dr. King's field marshal or field general.
Yes, sir.
See, Dr. King in the civil rights movement was the spokesman. And he would make a lot of big statements, but who was actually doing the groundwork? Who was organizing the people? Who was organizing the students? Who was taking care of the logistics? Who was actually making it happen? In other words, who was making Dr. King's word bond? It was Reverend Bevel. And so when Reverend Bevel heard that the minister was duplicating what Dr. King had done with the March on Washington in 1963. And I was there in 1963. I was 15 years old at the March on Washington with Dr. King. I was a follower of Dr. King before I came into the Nation of Islam. So when Reverend Bevel heard that the minister was calling for 1 million man march, he called me. He said, Dr. Alim, that's how he pronounced my name. Dr. Alim.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I heard the minister's calling for a march for 1 million men. I said, yes, sir, that's right. He said, well, what's the theme of the march? I said, well, I don't know. He didn't mention the theme. And so I called the minister and I asked him, what the theme was. And he hadn't thought about a theme. So then I got back with Reverend Bevel. And to make a long story short, and to give you the exact date, on December the 26th, the day after Christmas, 1994, there were about 12 of us that assembled at the Abundant Life Clinic offices. And we had a dialogue session led by Reverend Bevel. And then we had a second session a week later. This was on January the 2nd, the day after New Year's, 1995. And we concluded the dialogue. And the conclusion of the dialogue was atonement. That the theme of the march needed to be atonement. And And so since Reverend Bevel was living in Chicago at the time, he went and got an appointment with the minister and presented the idea of atonement as the theme for the Million Man March. And the minister loved it. And so, you know, the rest is history, as we say. And so the 8 steps of atonement were presented, you know, that October, that beautiful, beautiful day in October that nobody will ever forget. So now, to me, one of the greatest significances, if not the greatest significance, of the Million Man March was the first thing that happened. And that was the call to prayer and the Fajr prayer on the Capitol steps of the United States of America.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
With even at that early time in the morning, more than 1 million people participating in Fajr prayer. You see what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
Every television network in the world tuned in to what? Fajr prayer. I'm told that the global audience was over 1 billion, in the billions of people who witnessed that. So what was the Million Man March really? See, you say Million Man March. That's a catchy slogan. See, I mean, that's advertising, that's marketing. You know, it has a ring to it.
Yes, sir.
Makes you feel good. Million Man March, you know?
Yes, sir.
But what is the spiritual significance of the Million Man March? It is that Minister Farrakhan convened the largest Fajr prayer meeting in the history of the world. That was the biggest prayer meeting in the history of the world. That was the biggest worship service to God in the history of the world. Now, the rest of it is important too. And I played a role, you know, and you know, the other thing that was historic that I played a role with, I had the responsibility of organizing the first aid stations.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So we ended up with 23 trailers as first aid stations. We had 700 doctors that volunteered. I don't know how many hundreds, or probably 1,000 or more nurses, and thousands or more other technicians, medical professionals. We literally emptied out Howard University Hospital. All the doctors volunteered, all of them. I saw the medical chief of staff from Howard University. He was a volunteer at the Million Man March.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The chairman of surgery from Howard University Hospital was a volunteer, a medical volunteer. I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "I'm volunteering." Now, later on, Georgetown University did a research study about our first aid stations. And when they did the research, they found out that the 23 first aid stations and the whole setup that we did, we published a first aid manual. We trained all of the people. They said that that was the biggest, what do they call it? Public health event in the history of the world. And that was done by the Nation of Islam Ministry of Health and Human Services. And then, of course, surrounding the minister himself, along with the, you know, what you might call the physical or the military security, we had a top-notch medical security team too.
Go ahead, Dr. Alim. Yes,
and
sir.
I think you interviewed Sister Alima.
Yes,
she
sir.
was a part of that team, you know, but we were ready for any contingency, any contingency that would have taken place on that day. But Allah blessed us, because you know what the biggest complaint was from the medical staff, from the medical stations?
No, sir.
They were bored. Nobody got sick. I mean, there were a handful. But I'm just saying, we were prepared. You're talking about 1 million people, and then 2 million people show up. Now, how many heart attacks do you expect? How many asthma attacks do you expect? How many fainting spells do you expect? You know, how many accidents? How many broken arms? You know, just somebody stumbling. But instead, it was none.
Oh, praise the Lord. Go ahead, Dr. Yes, sir.
So the only thing that we could do was listen to the minister's speech. That's all we could do.
Beautiful. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And Dr. Alim, people are showing love all around the world. Thank you to Brother Daniel E., Sister Naima Muhammad says, Assalamu alaikum, family alaikum salam. Sister Lorraine says, Assalamu alaikum. And Brother Nelson Ramos. Thank you to everyone who is watching live on Facebook, as well as to our YouTube family, Sister Nia, Brother Kente, Brother Musa, Sister Auntie, and everyone else who continues to show love to the People's Podcast. Okay, now, Dr. Alim, leading up to the march, were you nervous about the backlash that the press was doing, and that you would, how that would affect you in your, ministry and community service, because everyone was attacking the Million Man March? Were you nervous?
No, I don't recall being nervous at all.
Yes, sir.
I never even thought about being nervous. No, I actually felt like I was participating in a conquering army. You know, like you going into battle, I guess there's a degree of excitement. You know, that's a kind of nervousness.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But that's a different kind of excitement. That's positive excitement. We get ready to take over.
Allahu Akbar. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
So why should I feel nervous? I think the person that got nervous was Bill Clinton. So that's why he got up and left town. He was nervous. I wasn't nervous.
Yes, sir.
I didn't notice anybody was nervous. The Speaker of the House cleared out his office, Newt Gingrich, and turned it over to the minister. Said, "Hey, here's my office. Here's the keys." So I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel nervous. I noticed that the Supreme Court shut down. I guess they got nervous. Congress shut down. I guess they got nervous. All of the big businessmen in Washington, D.C., they shut down. I guess they got nervous.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All of the heads of the departments in the government, they all shut down. I guess they got nervous, but I didn't get nervous. I didn't feel any nervousness at all. Matter of fact, there was a special kind of tranquility that has descended, and people commented on that. And even, I mean, the headline in the paper was, was like a glimpse of heaven.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So now, if you got a glimpse of heaven, do you think the people in heaven are nervous? They're not nervous. No, I think we were made to feel exceedingly secure, exceedingly glad, exceedingly victorious. I would even say exceedingly divine. Because we had a chance to put on display who we really are as a people. It was just us.
Yes, sir. Yes,
and whatever happened, well, that was just us. See, and it wasn't anybody else. It was just us. And when the world saw what we are like, when we are ourselves, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would put it, when we're not acting other than our own self, when we are allowed to be our own self, when the enemy leaves us alone to ourselves, well, the whole world got a chance to see what we would be like. So when they see the news reels and they showing the black man in some negative light, hey, that's us when we're being molested, when we're being tortured, just like the Palestinians. Yeah, they're acting out and doing vicious things that are ugly, and nobody can condone that kind of ugly violence. But on the other hand, why did you lock them up? Well, we understand. Why did you lock us up? Why did we explode at times in our history to voice our outrage? And they called what we did riots. They weren't riots. That was an insurrection. That was a rebellion of the black man against oppression.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And it coincides with exactly what's taking place right now in Gaza. Gaza's just a ghetto. I've been to Gaza. Gaza reminded me of Harlem.
Mm.
So just like Harlem exploded because they couldn't take it no more at a certain point. Okay, I was wondering what took Gaza so long. Those people are very patient. I think if it had been us, if it was black folks, it was you and me. If they had us in Gaza, like they got the Palestinians over in Gaza, we'd have long since been blown up. We'd have blew that place up a long time ago. But those people are very nice. So you go talk to the average Palestinian. They're very nice. They're very well-mannered. Everybody knows Ali Baghdadi. Look at Brother Ali Baghdadi, the Palestinian follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
One of the nicest human beings in the world. Just mild-mannered, very polite, very generous, very kind, and that's typical of the Palestinians. And so when you have nice people like that, then bullies like to take advantage of people like that and push them around and kick them around and take advantage of them just because they're nice. But there's a limit to being nice.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Like my mother told me when I was a little boy, she said, beware beware the anger of a patient man. Just because somebody's patient, hey, that doesn't mean they're weak. Just because they don't do anything doesn't mean they can't do something.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so that's where we are now, you see. If you reflect back on the Million Man March, we showed America, we showed the world what we could do. See, I mean, the Million Man March, of course, as we've already pointed out, was just peaceful, tranquil. But on the other hand, that was an army. See, if the order had been given, the outcome could have been completely different.
That's right.
What would Washington, D.C. look like today if we had come there for a non-peaceful purpose? If we had a different kind of a leader other than the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Suppose we had some firebrand leader, some insane, crazy, fanatical type person.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Trying to be some wild beast. People, you got people walking around calling themselves wild beasts like Black Panthers and stuff.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Suppose
sir.
you had a Black Panther standing up there inciting people.
Yes, sir.
But then what would have happened with all those people there? They'd have tore Washington, D.C. up. But we didn't have that kind of a leader. He could have done that. He could have turned them loose. He could have sent them back to their cities, to wreak havoc, to carry out revenge attacks. But instead, what did the minister do? He taught the science of atonement. That when you have a difficulty, when you have a problem, when you're pointing something out, something wrong, you can raise your fist and get mad and and go to fighting. You can do that. That's an option. But what's the civilized option? The civilized option is to engage in the spiritual science of atonement, to correct what is wrong.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, the minister predicted it so many years ago. He said of Israel, there would be no peace as long as there's no justice, there's no equality. And how many years ago was that? And how many days of peace has Israel had since that time? Not a single day. Because there can never be any peace based on injustice.
Yes, sir.
Based on oppression, based on racism, based on white supremacy. That's one outstanding statement the minister made on the Million Man March. He said, if America is to live, he said, if America is to live, white supremacy must die. Well, that was in 1995. Has white supremacy died?
No, sir. No, sir.
Well, then America must die. See, I mean, what do people think that the minister Farrakhan was speaking vain words when he said, if America is to live, white supremacy must die? So in other words, that was the prescription that he gave to America. See, atonement wasn't just for Black folks. No, America has a lot to atone for.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That was a time for Bill Clinton, who was president, to make a list of wrongs committed by America. And then as the leader of America, just like the king of Nineveh, he would put on sackcloth and ashes and lead the country into atonement.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, that's what Bill Clinton should have done instead of being under the desk with Monica Lewinsky. That's what he was supposed to have done. If he had listened to the minister, that's what he would have done. Mm. And America would have begun a process of atonement for all of the wrongs that she is guilty of.
Yes, sir.
But instead of atoning, they went on and started more devilishment, more wars than they had started before. Mm. And so now it's too late. So since white supremacy didn't die, as a matter of fact, this thing that they have over in Ukraine, this is actually the last stand of the white race. Mm. If you don't believe me, just look at the speech by the commander of the Azov battalion, Stefan Beletsky is his name. He's the successor to what's the guy in World War II? I can't recall his name right now. But Mr. Beletsky, the Nazi leader in Ukraine, he said that Ukraine is to rally the white races of the world for a final showdown against the Untermenschen, which that means underclass people, subhuman people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
They call them orcs in English. So that's what Ukraine is. And if you notice, it is all of the settler nations. See, just like Israel is a settler nation. These invader people from Europe came in and took over the land of indigenous people. See, that's what's happening in Palestine. The trouble in Palestine is the same trouble that they had in America when they were taking the land from the Indians here in America.
Yes, sir.
And they had to fight the Indians and break treaties and do all kinds of devilishment until they committed genocide against the Indians enough that the remnant that was left, all they could do with them was put them on a reservation. So that's all Gaza is. It's like an Indian reservation. Mm. The European settlers, a lot of them from America, the ruling party in Israel, they call them the Kahanas. So people remember, at the heyday when the Jews were attacking Minister Farrakhan for his support of Jesse Jackson, the number one opponent of Minister Farrakhan from Brooklyn, New York was Meir Kahane, so-called Rabbi Meir Kahane, who later on migrated to Israel and got murdered himself. But he was one of the most rabid settlers, and he advocated the violent annihilation of all Palestinians. So the reason that they were never able to negotiate any kind of a settlement with the Palestinians, and we'll get to that two-state solution in a minute.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Was because of these Kahanis. Their solution to the Palestinian problem is to murder them all. And so when they did have a prime minister in Israel, Rabin, some people may remember Rabin. Rabin was about the only one that was halfway decent and halfway sincere about pursuing peaceful negotiations with the Palestinians. Well, guess what the Kahananistas did? The followers of Meir Kahane. They murdered the prime minister of Israel, Rabin. Guess who ordered the hit on Rabin? Bibi Netanyahu, the current prime minister. So you see what you have is the similar situation to what was in America back in 1963. See, 1963 was how many years ago was that? That was 60 years ago.
Yes, sir.
So in 1963, see, these same people that we're talking about that are behind all of these kinds of events, these same people murdered the American president, Kennedy. And Israeli Mossad was involved, CIA was involved, the FBI was involved, George Bush was involved. And of course, Lyndon Baines Johnson, LBJ, who was the vice president, of course, he was in cahoots as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So in order to keep Lyndon Baines Johnson quiet about the murder of the American president, what did the Israelis do? They blew up the USS Liberty, a battleship in the Mediterranean. The Israelis attacked the US Navy ship, blew it up, killed a couple hundred Navy sailors. And what did Lyndon Baines Johnson do? Nothing. Nothing. And what was that an indication of? That was an indication of who was actually in charge of the country. In other words, we killed your president, and we showed that your vice president, who was in on the plot to kill the president, we're showing him to be a neutralized unit. We can actually take out one of your battleships, and your commander-in-chief is afraid to open his mouth because we'll spill the beans on him and show him out to be a co-conspirator with us against the murder of President Kennedy. See, so you could say that's the birth of the deep state. See, that's the birth of the deep state.
Yes, sir.
So in Israel, with the murder of Prime Minister Rabin, who was pursuing peace, just like Kennedy was pursuing peace with the Soviet Union. Kennedy was talking about the Peace Corps. Kennedy was talking about the Alliance for Progress. Let's develop Latin America. Let's develop South America. Let's decolonize Africa. Let's develop the whole world. Let's bring the standard of living of the whole world up to the standard of America. So, because development is the pathway to peace.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that was Kennedy's program. Let's get rid of this fiat currency that's worthless. Let's go back to the constitutional money that is gold standard. That was Kennedy's program. And had he lived, Latin America would have been developed. The Caribbean would have been developed. The colonies in Africa would have been free, not to neo-imperialism, but they would have actually been free for real. But they killed me and set up the deep state, which basically has been running the country ever since. And that same deep state murdered the prime minister in Israel who was pursuing peace in the Middle East. They killed Rabin. And so the same deep state Nazis, calling them what they actually are, the same Nazis that are in power in Washington came to power in Jerusalem. And any idea of peace was out the window. And so in America, just like in Israel, the policy ever since that time has been war after war after war after war after war. And so here we are on the brink of the Great War.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That some would call Armageddon, that some would call the Great Malhama. Some would call it the Third World War. But whatever you call it, here we are. You know, and we really need to understand it as best we can. And not just from an economic and political perspective, but the issues that are, I think, most important are the issues, you know, that can only be answered from one source. So I don't care if you did go to Harvard. I don't care if you did go to Oxford. I don't care if you are on the UN Security Council. I don't care if you are the president of a country. If you do not know the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, then you do not understand what the hell is going on. And that's why you're bumbling around in confusion, because you do not know the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If you paid attention to what that man taught you, then you would know exactly what is taking place. You see, so I think that should be our departure point in trying to gain understanding. See, a lot of times when it's like we do things habitually that get us in trouble without intending. We don't intend that, but it gets us in trouble because we do things like what? We follow the news. Well, you know, following the news, you know what that's like? That's following the sleight of hand of a magician.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you can follow it if you want to, but you're getting ready to get tricked. The best thing for you to do is don't follow it.
Mm.
Or stand back and follow it the way you want to follow it. And then it's not sleight of hand that's going to lead to a trick that's going to deceive you in some particular way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Another thing that people say, trying to understand things, they say, just follow the money. You've heard that 1,000 times, follow the money.
Yes, sir.
Well, if you actually follow the money, what's happening to the money? Going down the drain. So if the money's going down the drain and you're following the money, where are you going? You're going down the drain.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So what should you follow? Should you follow the money? Should you follow the news? No, you should actually follow the teachings on how to be like Muhammad. That's what you should follow. You should follow the Holy Quran. You should follow the way of the prophets. You see, and then if you did that, you see, then you would not be distracted by the news or confused by the news.
Yes, sir. Yes,
nor
sir.
would you be deceived by the sleight of hand of the magicians, the propagandists.
Yes, sir.
You know, Pharaoh had magicians.
That's right.
So look what happened just the other day. See, on you had October 7th, Yom Kippur. Now, in 1995, Yom Kippur fell on October 16th. See, that was the Jewish Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, the Jews, just like the Muslims, they don't follow the Gregorian solar calendar. The Muslims follow, and the Jews follow the lunar calendar. They don't stage their events according to the Gregorian Roman calendar. Why would religious people schedule their events, their holy days, according to the pagan calendar of the pagans, of the Romans? So religious Jews and religious Muslims don't do that. The Holy Quran says that it's the sun and the moon that are for the regulation of affairs. So that's why Ramadan doesn't come the same season of the year every year. It rotates through the years on a 19-year cycle. Well, so does Yom Kippur. So Yom Kippur this year was October the 7th. So 50 years ago on Yom Kippur, there was another war, which they said Israel was attacked due to a failure of intelligence 50 years ago. And now 50 years later on Yom Kippur, there's another attack. And what is it blamed on? Oh, it was an intelligence failure. Really? What kind of intelligence failure are you talking about? Well, the interesting thing is 50 years ago on Yom Kippur, Jubilee. The Jubilee is part of the religious law. The Jubilee occurs every 50 years. The Jubilee consists of a process to forgive all debts that are outstanding. Any debts that are still outstanding after 50 years has to be forgiven. You have to have a clean slate. All captives have to be liberated. Anybody that lost their liberty, or any institution or any country that lost their liberty in the last 50 years has to be let go. You can't hold any captives. You cannot hold any debt. And the third component of it is property that was lost illegitimately has to be returned to the rightful owners. See, that's God's law. It's Jubilee. That's what Jubilee. So now 50 years ago was Jubilee. So what should have that didn't? See, 50 years ago, who holds the debt of the world? When people say the national debt of America, well, who's the debt owed to? when Africa is burdened by debt. Those are the people who are supposed to forgive the debt because of God's law concerning the Jubilee. So in 1963, see, that's what Kennedy was actually working according to, in alignment with the Pope. He knew what time it was. It's Jubilee. You have to forgive the debt. You have to set the captives free, not just the captives in prison, not just the political prisoners, but the captive nations, captive peoples all over the world that have been held down by oppressive systems have to be released, have to be liberated. See, that's what should have happened 50 years ago in 1963. See, property that had been illegally gained had to be restored to its rightful owners. Well, where did the Americans get their property? They talk about their real estate market in America. It's booming. Well, how did you happen to come up with a real estate market in America when you set foot on the continent, you didn't have nothing? Now you're talking about you got a real estate market that's booming. See, the same thing in Israel. They're talking about a two-state solution. Wait a minute. Palestine always was one state. When did Palestine get divided into two states? God set up Palestine. Palestine means Holy Land.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When did Israel get to mean Holy Land? When did the Holy Land get to be Israel? When did Israel get to be the Holy Land? The Holy Land has always been Palestine. How did it get to be Israel? Well, we can ask the same question. How did Imam Isa or Prophet Isa, how did he get to be Jesus? They changed the name. And we could even go further back. How come Jacob or Yaqub, that Yaqub became Israel? See, all these name changes, it's kind of tricky, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, that's what had Nasser confused when they started this Zionist thing, and they started bringing these settlers in from Europe. And Abdullah of Egypt, he said, well, when you all left here, you look like this. Now you come back looking like that. So in other words, what he was saying, Europe settling in what they called Israel, they're not the real thing. See, now you wouldn't blame somebody named Jacob or Yaqub for wanting the name change. What does Yaqub mean? It means usurper.
Yes, sir. Yes,
rebel,
sir.
Overthrower. Well, now, how many friends could you make in the world if your name was Yaqub?
Exactly. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that's why he had to wrestle with the angel. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has that written down in Message to the Black Man, what that's all about. Yaqub in prison, you know, with the king of Islam. And so they gave him a name change. You see, so they've been changing names ever since. So they changed Jacob's name to Israel, which means having power with God.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Power with God. So that's the sleight of hand. See, that's the sleight of hand that it has the whole world hypnotized. See, we can do anything we want because we have power with God. We're God's chosen people. See, everybody's hypnotized, even the Chinese. See, that's what I'm saying. The only people that can actually tell the truth about what's taking Elijah Muhammad. The Russians aren't up to it. They're pretty good. The Chinese aren't good. But now you look at this thing that's taking place in Gaza. When have the Russians blamed? When did China ever blame Israel for obvious crimes against humanity? What happened when NATO bombed Libya and murdered and assassinated Muammar Gaddafi? Who stood by on the sidelines and did nothing? Russia. Who's China? So now what's up with that? Mao Zedong. Well, who was leading Mao? See, do some research. See who's who was Mao's teacher.
Mm.
Now they great things. They've lifted over 300 million people from poverty, but you see that won't allow China to go too far, even though they say Israel went too far, but China can't go too far in speaking against Israel. Better not.
Mm.
Same with Russia. See, how many people live in Israel? It's hard to say.
Yes, sir.
One of the reasons it's hard to say is because what's the definition of a Jew?
Mm. Mm.
Does anybody know? What's a Jew? Where is it mentioned in the Bible? When they talk about Abraham, the father of the righteous, where does it say he was a Jew?
Mm.
Muslims in Abraham's time.
Mm.
So Abraham was a Muslim.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, then how did the people who were Muslims, who started out as righteous people, being called Jews and Christians? Why didn't they stay Muslims? Out as. And even when Islam was brought back to them as a reminder by Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, how come they didn't accept?
Mm.
Well, we know why. And the only people who do know why are the followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They couldn't accept it because they're devils.
Mm.
Yeah, they are the chosen people of God. But like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught his followers, when someone says that they believe in God, you have to ask the follow-up question. What God?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What God do you mean? If you mean the God of righteousness, hey, then we on the same page.
Yes, sir.
We
yes,
believe
sir.
in the same God. We submit to the same God. We have fear of the same God. See, we obey the same moral laws. We follow the same dietary laws because we are in submission to the same God. So now when you find the people who claim that they are a people of God, but they don't eat like you, they don't tell the truth like you, they're not upright like you, they lie, they steal, they murder, they perform fraud, tricks, counterfeit money, impersonate other people, do all kinds of mischievous things. Well, they actually can't be serving the same God as you. And Jesus had it straight. Said if you were Abraham's seed, you would love me.
That's right. That's right.
But you hate me. Why? Because I told a lie on you? No, because I told the truth about you. That you are of your father, the devil.
That's right.
Well, now see, this is not nobody else in the whole world likes to preach that. Even though it's in the Bible, they don't preach it. They're scared to preach it. See, it's just like what happened when Dr. King got murdered. Almost all of his disciples, they backed down. They saw what happened to King. Hey, we better not go where he went.
Yes, sir.
See, they got cowardly. And that's what you have in the spiritual world. You have these spiritual bullies who are up to no good, who have no limitation on the evil that they will do. See, that's saying that you can't fathom the depths of Satan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, who would imagine that these people would bomb a hospital and kill 1,000 children? See, you couldn't even think of that. As a matter of fact, if you ever thought a thought like that, see, me and you, before I would do something like that, I'd kill myself. I'd kill myself. If I couldn't stop myself from doing that, I'd kill myself. Not those people. They get on television and lie about it. So again, you can't understand what's taking place from any other point of view except the point of view of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You can't get away from it. Now, if you reject the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and you do not want to call the devil, well, then die with the devil. See, look, what is the basic teaching of the nation? Isn't it separation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So
then what are the Palestinians complaining about? Haven't they been separated?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, then. Guess what's going to happen next? Now, weren't we taught to separate?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, have we done it?
No, sir.
No, we haven't. Guess what's getting ready to happen? Guess what's getting ready to happen to the people who have not separated? See, what did the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teach about separation? He says separation is divine.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This is God doing this. So look what happened, 18 months ago, 2 years ago almost, with the thing in Ukraine. And even before then. The European Union, NATO, United States, Israel, everybody did what? They put sanctions against Russia, sanctions against China, sanctions against Cuba, sanctions against Venezuela, sanctions against anybody that wouldn't sign on to a war against Russia. Well, now they can call it sanctions if they want to, but I would look at it like this. To me, that's separation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, what's Russia? Russia is mentioned in the Quran in Surah 30 under the name Rome. The Eastern Orthodox Church is the modern day Rome mentioned in the Quran. Well, they have found favor with Allah. So Allah separated them from Western Europe, the Roman Church, which is cursed. I mean, look at the Pope John Paul, what's his name? Francis.
Yes, sir.
Just last week, he made a statement that Klaus Schwab, the leader of the World Economic Forum, is more important than Jesus Christ. Now, what kind of Christian is that? Well, obviously, that's not a Christian. If he thinks that Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum is more important than his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, well, then he's just announcing to the world that he, the Pope of Rome, is a Satanist. Because that's what Klaus Schwab is. Klaus Schwab is a Nazi. Klaus Schwab is the son of a Gestapo Nazi under Hitler. Now he's the head of the World Economic Forum. And he's got 10,000 Nazi leaders that have been deployed to countries all over the world. And people want to tell me that the Nazis lost World War II? Are you kidding me? The Nazis took over the world since World War II. As I already mentioned in 1963. Who do you think that was standing on the corner of Dealey Plaza watching the president get his brains blasted? That was George H.W. Bush.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He was a junior congressman at the time. And of course, his family is a family of Nazis.
Yes, sir.
What does the historical record say about his father, Prescott Bush?
That's right. That's right.
Prescott Bush was the banker for Hitler.
The facts.
The father of the American president, George H.W. Bush, and the grandfather of another American president, George W. Bush, was the Nazi banker for the Third Reich. He represented Hitler on Wall Street. He financed the Third Reich from Wall Street. When the Nazis were asked in Germany at the Nuremberg trials, where did you get your philosophy from? They said, we got it from the Americans. Well, if you ask the Nazis in Israel today, where did you get your settler policy? That you could come in from anywhere you want to and just move in and move the indigenous people out and just keep encroaching on them and make treaties and break them all and murder them at will. And the judges wink and look the other way. And the more savage and murderous you are, the more influence you have until at a certain point, who ends up at the top of a criminal enterprise? I mean, we've looked at enough gangster movies to know the answer to that question. Yes, you get somebody like Scarface.
That's right. That's right.
You get somebody like Al Capone.
That's right.
You get somebody like Meyer Lansky. Okay, well, who's in charge of Israel except a gangster? A convicted felon, Bibi Netanyahu, and his wife, Both of them, convicted felons, gangsters, even under Israeli law, where gangsters go for safe hiding, they go to Israel. That's where all the gangsters go. That's where all the fraudulent banksters go. They go hide out in Israel and give the money to the government because it's a criminal government. So 50 years ago, when they should have atoned, gave forgiveness to the international debts, the debts of nations, when they should have released the captives, when they should have returned the property that was stolen from the original inhabitants, instead of doing that 50 years ago on Yom Kippur, like they should have done according to their law, what did they do? They expanded their criminal enterprise. They increased their mischief. They increased their devilishment. They increased their murder and their thievery and their lying and their deceiving. So now 50 years have gone by and now we're at the Grand Jubilee. So here's what the equation is.
Yes, sir.
Here's what the equation is from the point of view of God. It's either Jubilee or judgment, one or the other. So now you already proved that you reject the principles of Jubilee. You will not forgive the debt. Look at Russia. Look at China. They forgave the debt of the African nations. They're offering free grain, free food that was cut off by NATO, cut off by the US. So even though China's not even a Christian nation, they're actually more Christian-like than the so-called Christian nations, because they're not really Christian, are they? Just like Israel's not really a Jewish nation. If you mean Bible-believing Jews, there are some, but they don't run Israel. Most of the Jews in Israel are atheists. That's why I asked the question earlier, what is a Jew? How could you be God's chosen people and you don't even believe in God? But yet you're a Jew. And you claim that God gave you the deed to other people's ranch, you know, and you don't even believe in the God that you say gave you the deed to other people's ranch. See, you know, what is that except flim flam? That's just deception. That's just lies. That's just tricknology. And now it's come full circle. Since you rejected Jubilee, now you have to accept judgment. And so, as we speak, you see, Israel and America are in a panic. You see, Zelensky in Ukraine, he called Ukraine, the battle in Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, not just a rally of the white race, but he called Ukraine the greater Israel. It actually was to colonize Russia, assassinate Putin like they did this 100 years ago. You know the Bolsheviks, they murdered.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, okay, this is just a replay of history.
Okay, boom. Waiting for Dr. Alim to come right back on. Thank you, Sister Haraya. Thank you, Minister Jamil, to Sandra, the Sudan all over. Absolutely teach God body, Brother Roosevelt. Thank you all for watching, Sister Sandra, Lionel Day, Teach. Thank you, Sister Betty, for always showing love. Sister Donita, Brother Joshua, you were bringing us the truth. Sister Orlando, thank you very much. Okay, boom, boom, Brother Audio Nasur. There we go. There's Dr. Alim right back. And we already know what's going on. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, who continues to watch the People's Podcast all around the world. We're getting some amazing information as well as inspiration today. There we go. I hope everyone is taking notes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And Dr. Alim, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, somebody's.
Okay, well, boom, perfect. While Dr. Alim is, someone keeps calling his phone, we're going to do a quick 60-second commercial break for all of the sponsors of the People's Podcast. We're grateful for every donation and every cash app to the People's Podcast. Thank you for everyone who continues to show love all around the world. 1 second. There we go.
Television and film editing. Please reach out to him if you need any of those services. Sister Miriam's ABC I Love Me, children's book and coloring book, and now Spanish book. All three available on Amazon.com. Sister Naima's Stay on Point Dance Academy, LLC. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country, right here in the studios of Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Henry Carter's King Henry Turkey Legs, right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Brother Rashad Muhammad's COVID-19 Disinfected Cleaning Services, out of Chicago. Student Minister Sharif Muhammad's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ, available on adulsharif.com. And lastly, Brother Joshua Muhammad's book, Cleopatra, as well as No Father, No Excuse, both available on Amazon.
All right. Thank you, everyone who's watching. There we go. Dr. Alim is right back. And we just have one more sponsor, our sister Sherry Muhammad with Asiatic Minds. Thank you, Sister Sherry with Asiatic Minds. Please enroll your children into AsiaticMinds.com. They teach STEM virtually to young kings and queens all around the world. You can enroll your child virtually and get STEM information and knowledge. Thank you very much to Sister Sherry Muhammad and the staff of Asiatic Minds. Right back to Dr. Alim. He's on the road. Dr. Alim, yes, sir. I'm literally taking so many notes. Okay, Dr. Alim, I just had one quick question for you, because I am 4,000 level senior. This is senior year. We down undergraduate history, and we're dealing with World War. We just got finished dealing with World War I, but we're dealing with World War II right now as we speak. But there's a documentary I wanted to know if you have ever seen and recommend to people. It's on YouTube, called Everything is a Rich Man's Trick. Have you all ever seen that?
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh,
no.
yes, sir. I'm going to send it to you, Dr. Alim, because it's literally talking about what you're learning. And I found it on YouTube to help me better understand what was going on with Hitler and World War II and comparing it to now. And it's a breakdown. It sounds just like you. So it's just like, it will bear witness to what you're saying today. Everything is a Rich Man's Trick on YouTube. I'm going to send it to you, Dr. Alim. Man, you're teaching. Okay, I wanted to ask you, because we want to let you keep going, but I wanted to ask you about your visit to Gaza. What was that like?
Going into Gaza, except for the climate, is like going into Harlem. Into a very densely populated, like tenement slum type area, except that it's hot and dry, desert climate. So if you've ever been to Harlem or some old really dense ghetto, only packed in a little tighter than Harlem. It's tighter. There's less room. So it literally is an open air concentration camp that housed more than 2 to 3 million people. So I was there as a part of the World Friendship Tour. And I can say that we spent a day or two in Israel. That was a very tense part of the World Friendship Tour. Because again, you're dealing with unprincipled people who lie for a living, who don't keep their word about anything. And so it was a little bit tense. And so we spent some time in the West Bank, which is a little bit freer than Gaza. Gaza is literally a prison. That's the feeling that you get. You feel like you're being oppressed and squeezed as you go through these narrow streets and these high buildings up all around you. That Yasser Arafat, who at that time was the head of the PLO.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And now the PLO has essentially been replaced by Hamas. Now, what a lot of people don't know is Hamas was actually started by Israel as a counter to the PLO. Yasser Arafat and the PLO, they were secular, meaning they were kind of Marxist, Leninist, left-wing. They weren't religious at all. I'm not saying they weren't Muslims, but so Israel helped to create Hamas, destroy the PLO. See, in other words, divide and conquer. And there was a time when there was actually fighting between Palestinians, between the PLO and Hamas. Because again, Hamas was, you could think of Hamas like Frankenstein's monster. He created a monster to go out and kill his enemies. See, now you mentioned the word trick. You see, now if you look into the history of the Eastern European Jews from Ukraine and Hungary and Romania and all those Eastern European countries, Poland, magic, literally. That's what they learned in Babylon. See, when Solomon was the son of David.
Yes, sir.
And he built the temple. But you see, what people don't understand or don't actually think through in their heads, Solomon didn't have any people of him, those ancient Jews. He didn't have any smart people among him that knew how to build a temple. What did they know how to build? They had just come out the hills and cave sides of Europe to build a temple. They don't know how to build no temple. So that's why he had to enlist the help of the jinn, of wicked spirits. And so that's why after the temple collapsed, it was destroyed. Because here's Solomon trying, like he's a prophet of God, and he's dibbling and dabbling in black magic and sorcery and jinn, dancing around in the temple of God. Well, God wasn't going to put up with that. Took him into captivity to teach him a lesson. Well, now the lesson that God...
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So then the Jewish people, they always talk about the Babylonian prophets in Babylon. But the Quran says that they rejected the messages of Jibril. See, the angel of revelation to the prophet is the angel Jibril. Well, the Quran says that they rejected the messages of Jibril and they accepted the message. Well, who are the two upside down angels in Babylon? Well, these were the wicked demons that taught them black magic and sorcery. So when they came out of captivity back into Palestine, King Herod. Well, you know who King Herod was.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He saw the star in the heavens that indicated where the baby was so he could worship the baby, when in fact what he wanted to do was kill him. So here's King Herod building the second temple. Well, that's why Jesus made a prophecy after he overturned the tables in the temple. And 70 years after the departure of Jesus, hey, the temple was destroyed by the Romans. Now they're over there again since 1940. Well, they don't know any more now than they knew in Solomon's time. How the help of demons, black magic, sorcery, all kinds, trying to bring about the holy Israel, the kingdom of God, through chicanery, through lies, through injustice, through oppression, through murder. See, we are the followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, so we have the other people. See, we actually know the presence of God.
Yes, sir.
See, we have to understand God didn't come to those other people. They don't know nothing about God being a man. They don't know nothing about God. They read about God in a book.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
They know about God from dreams and visions, and God being in the world for real, taking charge of affairs for real.
Yes.
They don't know nothing about that unless we tell them, because we're the only ones that know. England. God didn't go to Germany. Master Fard Muhammad did not go to Syria, and he didn't stay in Saudi Arabia. He didn't go to China. He did not go, though he sent his brother there, but he came to us. And so that which was written.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And see, part of what was written is...
Sir, yes, sir, yes, sir.
No, it will be established by the people of God. That's true. There are some God. That's what I just finished saying. He chose to knock on our door.
Yes, sir.
He could have knocked on anybody's door. He could have gone anywhere. But he didn't. He came and chose us. So it's time for us to lie about it. We demonstrated it 28 years ago on the mall. Now, since you have not left us alone, and since you have known, and you haven't left anybody alone, Well, now comes the judgment. Things that were promised to come have come and are coming. That's bad enough. Then here comes an eclipse. And there's another one coming in with the center of the X in Texas. So some people say that could be the earth that splits America in two. After all, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, was God lying?
No, sir. No, sir.
Or was he telling the truth?
See.
So I lost track of the time, but I guess we need to wind this up. But see, let me just sort of put things into focus.
Yes, sir.
What I warned not to do myself. See, following the news, the sleight of hand.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It gets you confused. So now, look at God's one-state solution. See, they're talking about a two-state. They're talking about a two-state solution. Look at Korea. That's a two-state solution. That's a constant trouble spot, isn't it?
That's right. Yes, sir.
They had North and South Korea. Look at that. Was that a nice outcome there? How many people died because of a two-state solution? And we could go on and show example after example. When they talk about a two-state solution, essentially what they're talking about is divide and conquer. Look at Sudan. 9,000 people got killed in Sudan just while we're looking at why? Because they had a two-state solution. Oh, we'll have Sudan, then we'll have South Sudan. Divide and conquer. Yaqub's favorite trick, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
It's God's solution, and that's a one-state solution since it's only one God. So who is the God of Abraham? Isn't he the same as the God of Moses?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Tell us if that's not true. But we'll assume that the God of Moses is not some satanic God like Moloch or Yaqub. We assume, because the reason why we have to ask that question, go look at the Bible. What happened when Moses went up to Mount Sinai and had a conversation with a burning bush?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Then he come back with the tablets of the law, the 10 commandments. Well, there were two interesting things, maybe three interesting things that happened right at that moment. They said when Moses came down from the mountain, Mount Sinai,
yes, sir.
They said he had two horns coming out his head. Go read it in the Bible. And go look at the statue of Moses done by Michelangelo and several other artists throughout history. Every time they depict Moses, he got horns coming out his head, just like the devil. So that's why I say God of Moses is the same God as the God of Abraham. And assuming that the God is the same as the God of Abraham, and the God of Muhammad and the Muslims is the same as the God of Abraham.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, there goes. It was already in effect. Ever since out of Ur in Babylon, he crossed over the Jordan River. That's what the word Hebrew means. He who crossed over. Holy land, Palestine. Now, Abraham wasn't a Jew, nor did he read the Bible. But he was the father of the righteous and the friend of God.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So now you can't be saved unless you're a Jew. You can't be saved unless you're a Christian. You can't be saved unless you, well, how come Abraham is the father of the righteous and he wasn't a Jew? He wasn't a Christian. So Abraham is the father, the Jews. You can find of the seed of Abraham.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And Jesus pointed that out. If Abraham were your father, hate me.
Yes, sir.
But you can't be of Abraham's seed. You're of your father, the devil. That's what Jesus. Among the Jews, there is a remnant that is Abraham's seed. Among the Christians, those would basically be the Israelites who believed in the prophethood of Jesus or Isa and became what we call Christians. Well, among them, there is the seed of Abraham. Not all of them. All them Christians are not the seed of Abraham. Some of them are. Same with the Muslims. Some of the Muslims are of the seed of Abraham. Not all of them. Everybody's invited into the religion of Islam. Everybody's invited into Judaism. But among Muslims, and maybe among other groups as well, some of those people are of the seed of Abraham, but not all of them. See, sometimes we make assumptions. We assume, I think, some of us, that everybody that was on a slave ship and brought out of Africa into slavery, we think everybody was the seed of Abraham. But teach some of these Negroes. Because if they were of Abraham, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad stood up in America and told America the truth, who were the people in him? Because he told the truth. See, that's the seed of Abraham. And then America, black and white, they didn't love the Honorable Elijah Muhammad because he told the truth. They hated the Honorable Elijah Muhammad because he told the truth.
Yes, sir.
White people hated it to be called devils, even though that's their truth. And there were plenty of black people said, you shouldn't call them that. They were more up in arms against us than the white people were. Well, that's not the seed of Abraham. A lot of people are just like me. As soon as I heard the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, it's like the Bible says, you need no teaching. I just had to hear the vibration. But I was already connected. Just like you are already connected to you and me. No, the prophets was for other people to see if they could get straight. And most of them didn't. And the few that did, it's pretty shaky.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I mean, I'm just telling you the truth. They're Christians, but barely. Look what Prophet Muhammad said. He had a troubling dream, they say in the Hadith. And he woke up in his cold sweat, and he cried out, woe to the Arabs. Woe to the... And he finished by saying that Gog and Magog have just been released. So why woe to the Arabs? Well, you can see woe. Go look at Palestine. Go look at Damascus. Go look at Baghdad. Go look at the Arab world against Muslims. How many hundreds of millions of Muslims have this 1991 with the first Persian Gulf War? How many hundreds have been slaughtered without any response from Islam? In Islam, country after country, toppling leader after leader, no response. We just take it, take it. And we call it a trial of Allah, when in fact it's the oppression of the test. See, this is the test. The prophet said that oppress not and be not oppressed.
That's right, that's right.
So then that. They don't oppress anybody, but they don't allow anybody to oppress them. So now who in the Muslim world is like that today? They don't oppress and they will not be oppressed. You tell me.
The followers of Muslim Elijah Muhammad, the Muslims, the believers, the nation of Islam.
Yeah, we could be.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we perform our duty at the level at which it must be performed in order to usher in the kingdom of God. Because that's actually what this is. Say, woe to the Arabs. Well, reason that is woe to the Arabs at the release of Gog and Magog is because the Arabs are the protectors and the defenders of the holy places. See, you and I weren't there in Mecca when the British showed up and attacked Mecca. See, you and I weren't in Medina when the British showed up. Soldiers in Medina, they fought to the last man. They fought. It was like a suicide mission. They fought to the last man. See, you and I weren't. You and I weren't there when General Alim marched across the Jordan River and took Jerusalem after 750 years. See, you and I weren't there.
Yes, sir.
We didn't fight those bloody fights. That fought it. And they're still fighting it. See, we're lucky. We're over here practice luxury. We don't hardly have to pay no price to be Muslims. There was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad paid a little price. Some of them went to prison. You see, so we are protected. See, we're in the bosom of Allah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, we unlike any other people. God who is present. I'm not talking about some mystery God somewhere that might every now and then think about. I'm talking about a God that sat down with us at our dinner table.
Yes,
drank
sir.
coffee with us, taught us how to make bean pie, dressed us up in the best righteous garments ever seen in modern civilized society.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, that's what I'm talking about. A God who constructed a weapon because he understood. We're going to give them one or two more chances. But these demons, they're not going to do right.
Yes, sir. Yes,
so
sir.
In the end, Abdul Qarnayn, he bottled them up in Europe for about 1,000 years. The Muslims, the Turks, they've been battling Gog and Magog, trying to get out of the hills and cave sides of Europe. But in the end, they got out. Christopher Columbus, the half original man, he wasn't no white man, half original man, let them out of Europe. And they've been running crazy ever since for the last 500 years.
That's a fact. Yes, sir.
So we tried to teach them Islam. We tried to teach them Christianity. We tried to teach them Hinduism and Buddhism and Confucianism, trying to make them act right. And they just won't act right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So what has to be done? They have to be removed. What did Minister Farrakhan say when he said stop the killing? When he spoke in Washington, D.C. in 1987. Stop the killing. Well, he said you can't stop the killing until you stop the killer. And so that's what time it is now. The killer is about ready to be stopped. And they're being stopped right now as we see. And I don't just mean that they're starting to sound like Ukraine. Remember all last year, they were talking about the Ukrainian counteroffensive, the summer offensive, the springtime offensive. We get ready to make our move. When did they ever make their move? And then when they did make their move, what happened to them? They got flattened.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So now here's Israel talking about we had an intelligence failure. I guess so. You didn't learn nothing. You didn't learn nothing in the last 4,000 years. Look how dumb these people are, man. Here's some British Lord Balfour. Lord Balfour saying that the British Empire was going to set up a home for Jews in Palestine. And they came up with some cock and bull story, the Zionists did, that these were the ancient Jews, the ancient wandering Jews, and they've been wandering all over the world, and they've been persecuted with anti-Semites all over the world, and the only place that they can go, that they can find refuge, is in Palestine. And do you know these people are dumb enough to go along with that story? I'm talking about the Jews. I mean, they were so dumb. Now here you got some Jews right now. They live in a good life in Brooklyn. You know, they own diamond stores and all kinds of stuff. But they get so hypnotized by this mythological fairy tale that they've been indoctrinated into since childhood. He'll pull up roots and leave Flatbush, Brooklyn, and go live in a kibbutz in Israel, and he got to sleep at night with an AK-47 because he's God's chosen people, you know, and if he don't kill the Palestinians, they're going to kill him. Now, what kind of understanding is that? See, again, so they haven't learned anything. Just think about that. They have 4,000 years, prophet after prophet after prophet after prophet, trying to teach them how to act right. See, the one-state solution requires that. You have to live with your brother and your sister in peace. You have to do unto others as you would have others do unto you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You can't covet your brother's wife or your brother's property. See, the 10 Commandments, it's all spelled out there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, of course, in addition to growing horns, for some reason, when Moses came down the mountain, he broke the tablets.
Mm.
Then he had to go back up and get another copy.
Mm.
And while he was gone, his brother Aaron, they melted down all the gold jewelry of everybody and started worshiping a golden calf, just like they have on Wall Street.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
They got a golden calf down there on Wall Street.
That's a fact. That's right.
They call it a bull market.
That's right. That's right. Teacher.
And Moses got so angry that he pulled his brother's beard. But now God got so angry. See, now this is the part that people don't like to read in the Bible. Do you know that God got so angry at Moses that God went out to kill Moses?
Mm.
And I forget who it was. Somebody had to talk God out of killing Moses.
Mm.
Because Moses was so contrary to the law.
Mm.
He was given the law of God such a bad name. I mean, keep in mind, but that just is a symbol for what they was really doing. They were actually breaking the law. I got so angry. Go look it up in the Bible. Go do a Google search. Why would I don't know? I mean, really, why would God want to kill a prophet?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, that's some serious business. God getting ready to kill a prophet, talk him out of it, to let him go on for a little bit longer because you gave him a promise. But you didn't know it was going to be that bad. So now the 6,000 years is up. So now if God was ready to kill Moses 4,000 years, what do you think God is ready to do now? I mean, I'm just saying these are things to think about.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If God was ready to be the followers of Moses.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh my goodness, they're in trouble. See, Israel would not exist without the British, right? The British Empire. Lord Balfour wrote the letter to Lord Rothschild. It's a little bit complicated. Balfour, or was it Lord Rothschild? Since the Rothschilds took over the British fund, and Rothschild always boasted he didn't care who sat on the throne. He controlled the purse strings. So the story goes, it was Lord Balfour who wrote the letter to Lord Rothschild. Okay, so it means that Israel actually is a project of the British Empire. Israel is actually a colony of the British Empire, just like America was a colony of the British Empire.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, unfortunately for Israel, the British Empire collapsed. So you have to keep in mind that God is present. This is the time of judgment.
Yes, sir.
And so 100 years ago, when they started this stuff, they said the sun never set on the British Empire. What about now? What about now? The sun set on the British Empire. So if the British Empire was the backup for Israel, it lost its number one backup. Well, then who popped up to replace the British Empire? So then America became Israel's number one ally, back Israel in anything. Biden's over there in Israel right now.
That's right.
They've given untold numbers of money to Israel. Well, now let's bring this thing right to a sharp focus. How good is the American empire doing these days? Israel, how strong is America? How strong is America's economy? How much debt does America carry? I mean, it used to be the strongest in the world, but what happened in Ukraine showed the world that America's weapons don't work. Against Russian weapons, against Iranian weapons, against Chinese weapons, against North Korean weapons. The weapons that NATO and America are using in Ukraine are being. Russia has electronic warfare equipment. Donald Cook was trying to sail in the Black Sea. Russia told him to turn around and go. So they flew a Su-34, I think it was. that had electronic jamming equipment. They disabled the entire ship. The ship lost power, lost navigation, lost radar, lost communication, was just dead. So now they claim, we're sending 2 aircraft carrier groups to the Mediterranean. So what? Once they turn on the jamming equipment, hey, they're dead in the water. But remember when they lost the F-35?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How did they lose the F-35? I know it's stealthy. So it's hard to find. I know that. It's stealthy. And then he didn't know what happened to the plane. Well, he also doesn't know why he ejected. Eject. He got ejected. See, they don't like that has all this electronic stuff on it. They took control of that plane. They didn't want the pilot. They wanted the plane. The reason they couldn't find the plane and have it is because the Russians took it. See, that's electronic warfare. America doesn't have a hypersonic cruise missile. They had to pull the F-35s out of on the aircraft carriers. Well, Iran said that we can track it. You can remember when the Iranians just took control of a United States Predator drone 3 or 4 years ago and landed it and then reverse engineered it. Now they're so what I'm saying is that the die has been set, the stage has been set. Iron Dome is the same Iron Dome that they were using in Ukraine with Patriot defense system. And so what the world found out in Ukraine is the Iron Dome doesn't work. I had an intelligence failure is because Hamas and Hezbollah, they issue intelligence that is the Israeli defense system. The Israeli defense system, that's supposed to be a smart wall at Gaza, even a mouse, a grasshopper, arm, sensor.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but they hacked it. See, that what happens if somebody hacks it? See, the most advanced fighter jet plane until somebody hacks it. And the more advanced it is, you see, so that's what's taking place. So now Hamas is shooting thousands and thousands of missiles. Hezbollah has been shooting missiles. And they've been somewhat successful. But, excuse me here, before my phone dies. And the answer is almost none.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And they asked Biden for more. That's what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to be bringing some more missiles. And he said 300 missiles left to give to Israel. Then they're out. So now Hamas has tens of thousands of more missiles. Iran is just gearing up. They just flew the black flag. The hadith says that when you see the black flag, it's an irresistible army. And the hadith says that if you see that army, then even if you have to crawl over ice, talking to the Muslims, then you should join that army in Khorasan province, in answer to the prophecy, to forgive the debt, since they elected not to free the captives, since they elected, illegally gotten property. And this is Israel, this is Europe world. This is the Caucasian world. This is the world of Yaqub. They turned God down. They turned down God's merciful offer of atonement, the mouth of Minister Louis Farrakhan. They turned it down. So since they turned down the mercy, see, we say that prayer, guide us on the right path, the path of those upon whom favors are bestowed. But they're not the one upon whom wrath is brought down. Now, we don't want to be on that path. Any sense about it. If we intend to continue to receive favor of God, then we must do what we have been commanded to do. Separate ourselves from these people as God is wiping them out. And we don't have a long time pretending like we're not ready yet. Well, maybe we're not ready to go down with your slave master that you refuse to separate yourself from. You get energy. I don't say absolutely none, but you give very little time, attention, and enter your own freedom, into your own survival. Most of our people still have the same mentality as an old slave. We think survival is having a job, some money from white folks, and we call that survival. And God is offering us the kingdom. So again, if that's how dead-headed, we are, dead-hearted we are, after all of this teaching. If we say justifying, pardon me, God is justified in condemning Israel, America, for their rejection of his offer, how could we say that we haven't earned destruction when we ourselves are turning down the friendship of Allah, turning down the mercy of Allah, trying to hold on to our one slave master, hoping that he stays in power? And many of the righteous Muslims, righteous Christians, in our prayers, salvation of the devil. We want the devil to give us more money. We want God, what God said, separate yourself from the devil so I can kill him. See, the Bill Clinton was not the only one who refused to atone in 1995. He wasn't the only one. He wasn't the only one. It wasn't just white people who refused to atone. They weren't the only ones. It included all of us. And that's why we are where we are today, because of what we have done and what we have refused to do. And it's the combination of that which is good added up to that which is not so good. Okay, what is the sum? Is it more good than evil or evil than good? It's always a combination. None of us are perfect, but it's to make it. But if our evil outweighs our good, then we're going down with those that are, even though we're partially good.
Beautiful. All praise is due to Allah. Yes, sir. And Dr. Alim, thank you. With you soon. Man, you've given us so much. We're full. We thank Allah for you and your